Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, today's Monday, March 30th, 2026, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. This week, the Supreme Court will consider the Trump administration's efforts to end birthright citizenship. I'll talk to a human rights attorney about the racist arguments from an 1896 Supreme Court case that supported Jim Crow being used by Donald Trump to justify nullifying the 14th Amendment. Starting today, you can participate in the largest survey of black people in American history. The executive director of the Black Futures Lab and the Black to the Future Action Fund will join us to talk about the Black Census. Nick Cannon, Amber Rose, they set the internet ablaze, talking about how Republicans love black people, Democrats don't, and how it was Democrats who started the KKK. I'll take y'all to class because clearly some people skipped the other half of history class. Yeah. I got something to say about that. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, the racist actions of this administration continue. On Wednesday, the Supreme Court will consider the twice-impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief's efforts to end birthright citizenship, which a federal judge blocked in July. Legal scholars say the administration is citing arguments from an 1896 Supreme Court case that established the separate but equal doctrine, which supported Jim Crow laws. These arguments were originally made by Alexander Porter Morris, a Confederate officer during the Civil War and a Louisiana attorney who advocated for legalized segregation in that landmark case. Now, keep in mind, when you go back to the Reconstruction era and you begin to unpack that particular era, what you actually are dealing with is you go from Dred Scott decision in 1854. You're going through, of course, the end of slavery with the 13th Amendment. Then you get the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment. Those were the three Reconstruction amendments. Then you go, of course, to the election of 1876, the contested election, the Great Compromise of 1877. Then you begin to see a Supreme Court invalidate legal rulings like the 1875 Civil Rights Act. And then you go to 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson. We've seen this happen over and over and over again. And so what Donald Trump is trying to suggest, and he put out a Trump Truth Social post. If y'all have the post, pull it up where he argued, and Republicans have been arguing that the 14th Amendment only applies to the children of enslaved people of African descent. Let me say that again. They say it only applies to them. And so what they have been suggesting, and this is all a matter of them targeting undocumented workers in this country. This is what their entire strategy has been. And so they have been wanting to get rid of this. And so what Trump did was he signed an executive order invalidating the 14th Amendment. Okay, first of all, an executive order cannot invalidate a constitutional amendment that was, of course, approved by Congress, ratified by the states, and then placed to the Constitution. Executive order cannot do that. But that wasn't the point. The point of the executive order was for this case to go to the Supreme Court because he believes by having 6 conservative justices on the Supreme Court that he can actually win this case. That's what this is all about. And so you've got these FBA folks and others who say, oh, no, this is perfect because the 14th Amendment only applies to us. When, since it was ratified, the 14th Amendment has applied to anybody actually born in this country. So conservatives, Republicans, MAGA, they have been opposing what they call anchor babies. And so what they want to suggest is that you get rid of this provision, and by getting rid of this, and as a result, anyone who's actually born in this country, it will not apply to them. That's what they are trying to argue before the United States Supreme Court. And now, when you look at the rationale again, they're using a racist, a segregationist to support their argument. And what they've been trying to do is to get African Americans behind this. Some have fallen for the okie doke by suggesting that, oh, well, this only applied to Black people, folks who were enslaved, or the children of folks enslaved. That's what they have been focusing on. Joining me right now is Yannick Gill. He's a human rights lawyer. Yannick, glad to have you here on the show. Look, we know exactly what the game is. And so they want to target folks who have come to this country, born in this country. And so they want to call them anchor babies. They want to target Black immigrants who have come here from Jamaica, from African nations, from the Bahamas, from Bermuda and other countries, people who were born here because based upon the 14th Amendment and based upon prior precedent, if you are born here, then you are a United States citizen. They want to get rid of that part of the 14th Amendment, and they hope that this right-wing MAGA Supreme Court will let them.
The Constitution is clear, Roland, and the court must be too. This is a question beyond just law. You hit the nail on the head when you brought up our culture, when you brought up who is American. And you cannot separate this analysis of the 14th Amendment, law that has been established for well over 150 years, and the current mess that exists within MAGA country. You see, it's primarily non-white people being born in the United States, and they're scared. They're scared of what will happen when there is a voting electorate that is not supportive of MAGA policies, and diversity continues to rise. You see, the numbers are in our favor. 1.8 million U.S. citizens were born to two parents from a different country. Currently, 4.8, almost 5 million people were born to at least one parent with either a regular status or a conditional status. Think a H-1B visa, meaning they're here seasonally, or even a student visa. The law isn't meant to be changed to where people will be born and not recognized by our Constitution. Not only is it unconstitutional, but it's definitely not something that one man trying to be a monarch can change through an executive order.
But here's the problem. But here's the problem. The 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868. That amendment reversed the Dred Scott decision, which took place in 1857. Here's the problem. The problem is that every time we have a Supreme Court nomination here, they talk about stare decisis precedent. But the reality is there really is no such thing as precedent, because a Supreme Court can overrule a previous decision. The fact of the matter is, this Supreme Court could very well declare that this portion of the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. And that's what we're facing. Remember, people also said, hey, the court's already decided precedent when it came to Roe v. Wade. This court, in a case where they were not even, the Mississippi folks We're not even asking for Roe v. Wade to be overturned. They went as far as to overturn Roe, so they even went beyond the case that was in front of them.
And that is the danger of the Supreme Court. We have allowed the president to pack a court that is clearly political. And if you just look at the legal decision that they're focusing on, there's 5 words that are at the core of this case on Wednesday: subject to the jurisdiction thereof. But we know how the law works in the United States. We don't care your nationality, your creed, your race. If you're in the US, the law applies to you. Now, there's some discrimination with how it's applied, but anyone born in this country is subject to the jurisdiction thereof. This would be another brazen attack on our Constitution, on our civil rights, on American culture, for them to take away something so inherent, so basic to what it is to be an American.
But again, I want people to understand that this court does not care about precedent. If you look at the rulings that they have made when it came to presidential immunity, and just pretty much granting that the president can do anything they want to do, and they ruled in that case for Trump, and he wasn't even, I mean, the issue in front of them, he wasn't even in the Oval Office when those issues came up. And so this right-wing court, okay, positioned by the Federalist Society, positioned by the right wing, this is really the mother lode for them. They were focused on, yes, Roe v. Wade. They were focused on 14th Amendment. And they also want to completely invalidate 1965 Voting Rights Act. And so people need to understand what we're dealing with here. The Supreme Court is the final arbiter. There's no one above them. And so when people say, well, you can pass a law to overturn the decision, but here's a law that was already passed that has been on the books since 1868 that they very well could invalidate and rule unconstitutional.
And you have hit the nail directly on the head. We have seen the Supreme Court time and time and time again rule against black letter law, against well-established precedent, to just follow whatever it is that President Trump wants. You're completely right. The Constitution should protect for this. Our precedent should protect for this. But we're in a time where MAGA not just is in the White House, it's not just in Congress, but they're also in the Supreme Court. And so Wednesday's decision can have a massive rippling effect, not just to Latinos or undocumented immigrants, but as you aptly noted, to the black community. Because, as I continue to say, on its face, you cannot tell who is an immigrant and who was born in this country. And we're seeing the chaos that's causing in Minneapolis.
Bringing in my panel right now, A. Scott Bolden, attorney based out of Washington, D.C. Also, Thelma Anderson, creator of the Public Opinion Court, author of Shut Up and Prosecute out of Dallas. Dr. Ome Congo, being a senior professorial lecturer, School of International Service at American University, author of Lies About Black People, How to Combat Racism. Scott, I'll start with you. Again, I need people watching to understand all they need are 5 votes. There are 6 MAGA jurists on the Supreme Court, okay? You've got Sam Alito. You could pretty much say Alito, he's going to rule with Trump, okay? Clarence Thomas absolutely is going to rule for Trump. You've got Neil Gorsuch, who's on the court. You've got Brett Kavanaugh. You've got Amy Coney Barrett. You've got John Roberts. The reality is, out of those 6, Coney Barrett and Roberts may be the 2 who don't flow the direction of the other 4. But people need to take this seriously. You cannot trust this court to say precedent stands, Scott.
Yeah, but here's the deal. And hello to your guests for bringing us some legal knowledge on this issue. As the son of a judge and who spent time on the Court of Appeals in the state of Illinois, it doesn't really matter if you are conservative or whether you're liberal based on your appointment. With the plain language of the Constitution, you got to do something with it. You got to get around it. Whether you're conservative or liberal, you still got to write an opinion that is legally and factually justifiable. And so my question to your guests, and I've been struggling with this over the last several months about this birthright citizenship is. In order for the conservatives 5-4 or 6-3 to get around the plain language of the Constitution, there are not many cases to go to the Supreme Court where it's going to rest on those 5 words. They've got to figure out a way around it. They've got to, if it's not stare decisis, they're not going to recognize that. Then how do they get around the plain language?
Easy.
You can't just sit there. You can't just ignore it.
Easy.
I'd love to hear your guests talk about that pathway around it.
Yannick, go ahead. I'll be happy to answer Scott's question. Yannick, go ahead.
I think that we are giving them more credit than they deserve. We have seen, whether it be the Roe v. Wade decision.
Me or Roland?
No, I'm definitely talking to you, sir, not Roland. Apologies.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
I think there's a little bit too much faith that the Supreme Court is going to follow black letter law, and it's been shown time and time again that they will twist and interpret and redefine well-established precedents in ways that any first-year law student would laugh at. It's not a legal question anymore. You cannot separate the politics from their analysis.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I can easily answer that question. It's called originalism. What the right wing has always maintained, they've always maintained this idea of what was the original intent of the framers? What was the original intent of Congress? And what Donald Trump, and what they have been arguing is that the original intent of the 14th Amendment was not for it to apply to anybody in the future. They're arguing that the intent that it only applied to the children of formerly enslaved people of African descent. And so their argument is that the 14th Amendment ends right there when it comes to that it only applies to the children and the descendants of the people, people who were formerly enslaved.
But Roland, that's a narrow. That is an extremely narrow.
That's the point, Scott.
Originalism, if I may, originalism encompasses the concept of what you're talking about. But the reality is that originalists will look at the plain meaning of the words. They don't give up on it being a living document. So it is a living document. And the plain meaning of
Scott,
that language.
They only believe it's Scott. They only believe
those 5 words
Scott.
The jurisdiction.
Scott, they only believe it's a living document when it applies to what they like. And that's what this whole problem is. I mean,
you're talking about politics. I'm talking about legal jurisprudence.
No, Scott.
And 2,
Scott, a Supreme Court
let me coach you on this.
Scott, hold on. Let me coach you, Scott, on politics. Scott, let me coach you on politics.
What?
A Supreme Court nominee.
Let me coach you on legal jurisprudence
Scott,
first.
a Supreme Court nominee.
Like a lawyer,
Scott,
you ain't got a degree behind your name.
A Supreme Court nominee, Scott, listen. A Supreme Court nominee is picked by a president. A Supreme Court nominee is confirmed or denied by the Senate. That's all politics. This notion that we can divorce politics from the law and the court is absolutely, that's like being on meth, okay? You're high. You can't divorce that. You can't divorce it.
But I'm not divorcing the politics of it. What I'm saying is, once you get to the Court of Appeals, the Circuit Court, even federal district court, right? You could be a conservative or liberal. You still have to have a legal and a factual pathway to get to a conservative decision.
They will create
with
one.
You or your guest. What I'm saying is there is a legal and factual pathway, and what we need to really be exploring as we oppose this is, one, what's that pathway outside of the political piece? Because you're going to go with the politics and say they're just going to write something to serve their purpose. I get that part. But they also have judicial canons of ethics and judicial strictures that they've got to fit into in order to reach a decision that the Trump White House wants them to read. And all I'm asking your guests, and all I'd love to talk with other legal scholars about, is how best do you do that? Because then that's how you oppose it.
Thelma,
that's all I'm saying.
I'm gonna bring Thelma in here. Thelma,
and I don't think the lawyers disagree with me on that. Do you?
Thelma, bring you in here.
That pathway.
I'm bringing Thelma in here. This is the real issue we're facing.
Did you do that?
No, Scott, chill. Thelma, this Supreme Court knows that they are the final arbiter. They don't give a damn about legal precedent. They don't care about, well, let me come up with the right. They know at the moment they decide, that's it until there's a new court. They don't care what Scott just said.
No, I totally agree. And I slightly have to veer off with Scott on this because coming from the government as a former prosecutor and a former magistrate judge, I saw firsthand how politics played into the law. That, when I tell you, that literally changed how I navigated in the system, because not once did I think that the law was going to have to worry about being interfered with politics, but politics have more power in the law than we know. So when we're talking about what the Supreme Court is going to do, yes, we think that they're supposed to, we know that they're supposed to. However, they get to make that final decision because they have been put in a position to do it so freely under this administration. So we cannot minimize how powerful this particular case in the hands of some of the most uneducated, in my opinion, to the level degree that needs to be on the Supreme Court to follow the black letter law, because they're supposed to follow the black letter law. And one of the main words that is very clear in the 14th Amendment is everybody. It does not give a description. It does not say everybody, but it says everybody. And for them to come in and interpret it that way, that is because they have injected politics into the rule of law. And when you have the majority on the Supreme Court, they get to will and deal how they see fit, regardless of what their judicial responsibility is. And we've seen that this Supreme Court does not give a damn about their judicial responsibility so long as they're doing what the person that put them in that seat to do.
Scott, 1 second.
Hold on, let me respond.
Scott, hold on. I'm gonna let you respond after Ome Congo speaks. Ome Congo, I'm bringing you in here. The point that what Scott was addressing earlier, and then what you just heard Thelma say there. Let's take the Second Amendment for a perfect example, okay? When you talk about what the words actually say. Anthony, go to my iPad. I remember, folks were saying, wait a minute. The Second Amendment doesn't say anybody can have a gun. The Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. Now, when that case came up, there were many who said, oh my goodness, that applies to a militia for the state. Right. The purists say, oh no, that means everybody can have a gun. Any gun, how many guns you want, as opposed to an actual organized militia, which is an actual unit versus an individual. What we're dealing with here are 6 people, but it's really 4. Actually, I'm going to say 6, 4.5, 5, because Roberts ain't a moderate, Coney Barrett ain't a moderate, but considering how crazy the other 4 are, they might be deemed a moderate. These folks here, they know they have the power to literally rewrite law. I don't trust these people to respect precedent, to respect jurisprudence. I don't trust them to do anything that Scott said. I believe these folks are saying we can do what the hell we want because we have the power to actually do it, and literally no one can stop us. Ome Congo, hold on, Scott. Ome Congo, your turn.
Look, my legal analysis only goes up to about Law and Order. I've watched every season as far as I go. But on the political side of this, we have to be mindful of the fact that, you know, the courts, the Supreme Court, over the years, it has primarily granted rights to various individuals. This is the first, you know, Supreme Court that we're seeing that is actively working to take rights away. And we know it's also going to be coming with the Voting Rights Act as well. And so when we talk about, you know, what the letter of the law, we have a Supreme Court. These justices, they don't care. And they, outside of the tariffs, they pretty much ruled with Trump on pretty much everything, because that was something that was going to affect their dollars. So we can't take this court from what the law says, what the Constitution says. We have to take them as they are. And this is led by Roberts. This is a Supreme Court that is hell-bent on reversing the rights of pretty much everybody who is not a cisgendered white male. And they're going to do whatever it takes to do that. And their mindset has always been damn the law. So this is not, regardless of what the law, we know the jurisprudence and all of that, this Supreme Court has demonstrated completely that it cannot be trusted to do the right thing. Case in point, I remember when the immunity case came up, and I was seeing all of these guys, J. Michael Ludig, all of these conservative judge luminaries who were saying, oh, this is a drop case, it's going to go nowhere, they're going to send it back to the lower courts. And what did we know? They gave him immunity pretty much over everything, which is allowing him to engage in his criminal acts right now and his unconstitutional acts right now. And so just on that fact alone, this is a reason why we should not trust this court to, I love what's being said here on the panel, but we shouldn't trust this Supreme Court to do that based on what the record shows as well.
All right, Scott, now you can talk.
Yeah, guys, real quick, two things can be right at the same time. I don't disagree with you that they're not trustworthy. And I understand the abortion decision, the immunity decision. I was one of those talking heads saying they'd never do that. Got it, right? The point I'm making is what makes this unique. One, politically, they would have, how do you look at the tariff decision? I can still distrust them, but the tariff decision where they went directly against the president on something that was near and dear to his heart and yet was killing our economy. So there is some glimmer of hope there. But the fact of the matter is, when you've got a case like this, just consider this, where the plain language of the Constitution is there, subject to the jurisdiction, you've got to do something. I'm sorry. You got to do something to get around it as a conservative jurist. You can't just ignore it and say, this is how it's going to be, this is what it's going to be. Now, Roland, I like your argument saying, hey, the originalists will say, well, this is what it was meant to be. That's true, but that seems to run out a little bit because we're in 2026. So that alone won't sustain it. And because it is a living document, regardless of what originalists think, it's been applied. And you do have precedent that say that if you're born here, you automatically become a citizen. At least 20 other countries say the same thing. So it's not that far-fetched. I practiced with Roberts. I practiced against him before he went to the Supreme Court. I do believe he's a moderate, deeply concerned about being a political court, notwithstanding some of his decisions. And I got to tell you, this huge, huge impactful decision that's going to be he's writing or somebody's going to write, I can tell you at the forefront is, why am I going to be a political court, or why am I going to be dragged into this political process? I don't want to get this wrong. And I do think there's hope. That's all I'm saying is there's hope.
Yannick, before you make your point, let me be real clear. Roberts is irrelevant. They have 6 votes.
Yeah, I know. No.
Scott.
And I got to tell you, I just at the Supreme Court.
Scott. Roberts could roll with Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan. It's still 5-4. And this is, and Yannick, this is the point that people need to understand. I listen to so many people. Matter of fact, but I'm even go before Hillary. When Obama was there, Rahm Emanuel, one of the reasons why I will never support his sorry ass for the Democratic nomination, Rahm Emanuel used to shit on progressives because all they talk about is the goddamn court and the federal bench. Yeah, dumbass. Because at best, Obama was going to be there 8 years. Federal judges can be there for 30, 40, 50, 60 years for life. And so what ended up happening? I remember all the people were sitting here saying, oh, Supreme Court, the Breonna Graves of the world, Supreme Court not going to be an issue when Hillary was running against Trump in 2016. Was it? Yes. Trump got three Supreme Court picks. I remember, listen, Obama people were pissed off at me when I was lighting his ass up when he nominated Merrick Garland. I'm like, dude, ain't nobody fighting for another white man. We had, 105 in American history, and then 105 out of 109, whatever the number was? No. I knew that was going to be a major issue. And so for people who are sitting their asses at home, who say elections don't mean nothing, my vote doesn't matter, well, guess what? Your lack of voting is the reason why Trump got 3 votes on the Supreme Court. The reality is this, Yannick, if 2016 election had gone different, progressives/liberals would have a majority in the Supreme Court right now. It would be 6-3 progressive/liberal versus 6-3 MAGA conservative.
Let me add.
Hold on, Thelma, 1 second. Yannick, go.
Yes, and you're completely right, and we wouldn't be dealing with this mess, this ideal that the law and the politics are separate. We know that judges and who they're appointed by matter so much in how they decide and interpret the law. And this is part of the reason that this case is even coming up. Let's be clear. I get this idea that the language is very clear, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. They can interpret things however they want. The same all persons is very clear, right? But when this law came out, when this was originally decided, that didn't include Native Americans. It was interpreted to strictly be the descendants of chattel slavery. How things are interpreted will intimately be impacted by the politics and who is reading, more importantly, who their audience is. I'll end with this. Keep in mind, this is the same person, the same president who entered into the political world by challenging what? The citizenship of President Barack Obama. This has always been part of the larger conversation. Anyone who is deemed non-white will have their citizenship challenged because they don't want them to vote. They don't want them to be part of our electoral process. Notice they didn't do this with Rafael Ted Cruz. Why? Because he acquiesced and assimilated in ways that Vice President Harris could not, which was challenged, in ways that President Barack Obama never did.
Thelma, go ahead.
I think one thing that we also need to pay attention to is how do we get here from the standpoint of the federal benches, which is very important, because when you look at the qualifications for these individuals to interpret simple law, that plays a big role in how these cases are getting to the Supreme Court. For them to have this ability to have the power that is immured in politics, we have this problem because of that. Look at the individuals that were the Senate was overlooking last week with their nominations for the federal benches. No qualifications whatsoever. Never tried a case, never did any kind of criminal work, never did any kind of work that qualifies them to sit on a lifetime bench.
But that's why they want them. That is literally why the Federalist Society, listen, they purposely, Mitch McConnell made it clear, we want to appoint people 45 and under. They appointed people to the federal bench who had graduated from law school 10 years ago. Folks who had never even gone into a courtroom. Folks who had never taken a deposition. So we have to understand what their whole aim and goal here is. And I'm telling you right now, I don't trust this court. There used to be a belief, especially among African Americans, that you could trust the Supreme Court, that you could trust the Constitution, that you can trust the law. One of the reasons, whenever I hear these right-wing people talk about black people in the federal government, not understanding that black people knew and understood, I'm going to cover this in less than 30 minutes, black people knew and understood they couldn't trust states, especially southern states. And so the only redress we had was the federal courts. The only reason we were able to defeat Jim Crow was because of the federal courts. Dr. King often said, be true what you put on paper. The problem what these folks want to do, primarily, Yannick, because of the Black freedom movement, the civil rights movement, because all of that, they are literally angry. They believe that the fall of America, the decline of America began with the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, 1968 Civil Rights Act, Fair Housing Act. In fact, let me take it back. No, that was the second Reconstruction. They actually believe the decline of America began with those first 3 Reconstruction amendments, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. So it's no shock that they are attacking voting rights, 13th, they're attacking the 14th Amendment, and all you women, white women, guess what? They also hitting your ass when it comes to voting too. So They believe, I don't trust the people at all. You have a significant number of them, Yannick, who believe that this country was meant to be controlled, run, and decided by white men.
And it's clear, as you pointed out, with the SAVE Act, it's clear with how you're seeing the Supreme Court pull cases that should have never made it this high. And you're hearing it black and white from the President of the United States, not on a hot mic, not on a leaked memo. He's saying it to our faces. This is the same president that, again, has been attacking folks, black folks, Latinos, the Muslim community, outright. You cannot separate citizenships and attack thereon from white supremacy. It's a core tenet of it. Whether you call it white nationalism, white Christian nationalism, white replacement theory, it's all one and the same. And attacking who is a citizen, who has a right to vote, who has a right to stand in a room and get an education, has been part of the playbook for centuries.
Absolutely. Well, we'll certainly be waiting for those arguments on Wednesday. Yannick, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, going to a quick break. We come back. We're going to talk about the largest survey of black people in the country. That's next, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Why does it feel like we're going backward? Voting rights under attack, schools stripped of funding, black history erased. This is the Trump MAGA agenda. They want to take us back. They are redrawing congressional lines in states across the country, deciding who gets power and who gets silenced. We see what this is, a power grab. Virginians won't be fooled. Show up, vote, take back our power. It's a temporary measure that gives the people, not politicians, the final say. Vote yes by April 21st.
My name is Bill Duke, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, starting today, you can take part in the largest survey of black people in American history. The Black Futures Lab aims to engage 300,000 African Americans from all 50 states to participate in the poll and share their primary social concerns. Kristen Powell, the Executive Director of the Black Futures Lab and the Black to That Future Action Fund, joins me right now. Kristen, glad to have you here. Walk us through this. This is the third or fourth year of this.
This is our third time doing it. And thanks for having me, Roland.
So last year, how many people participated last year?
So we did it in 2018 with 30,000 people, and then again in 2022 with 211,000 people. And we're at it again. We're going to reach 300,000 this time.
So walk us through, how do you put this this poll together? And again, for people who don't understand, explain the difference between this being a poll and a survey.
Yeah, so it is a survey. And there's a lot of people that have come together to put this, bring this to life. So we've talked to lots of different Black organizations. We've learned from the past years. But what's really important about this survey this time is that we're using it as an imagination project for Black people. In the past, this survey has been used to understand if people want to be civically engaged, what will motivate them to vote, what issues they care about. But this time, in this political climate, there's a real opportunity for Black people to be designing what comes next and what type of government actually works for all of us. And so we're using the survey this time to understand that from Black people. What values do we want our country to be centered around? What do we want our federal government to operate like? What do we want for our communities? And so I'm excited. You can go to blackcensusproject.org right now and take the survey.
Anthony, pull my iPad. It says, we've been the backbone, now we're the blueprint. Take the Black Census. You know, it drives me crazy when I hear these people say, oh, we've never had a Black agenda, which is an absolute lie. There are a number of groups that have actually done this.
We have one on our website right now.
No, that's my whole point. My whole point is, first of all, what this has done, other groups have actually created Black agendas. So anybody who says that is pretty stupid. But this lays out in a very comprehensive way where Black people stand and the issues that they actually determine to be important to them.
Yeah, so what's really exciting about this, and I just want to put it in context, the average poll that you see on like a CNN or an MSNBC, they've talked to 1,000 people, And then they're saying, Black people think. We're talking to 211,000 people in 2022 and 300,000 people this time in all 50 states. Black people are not a monolith, so we're talking to folks that are incarcerated in rural communities, Black people who are immigrants, Black people who are educated, all different types of folks, so we can have a real comprehensive understanding of what Black people want. Lots of folks are talking about us and not to us, and so many false narratives about what we think. And the Black Census stops that. It tells us exactly what Black people think right now and what we can do, what kind of agenda that we can have to move us towards action.
Panel, Congo, you first.
I think this is an amazing project, and congratulations on this release. My question for you is, what are some of the things that you've seen in the past surveys that you're expecting to be somewhat of the same, or that you're expecting to be just vastly different given everything that has happened? Trump being in office, Iran war. Is there a certain level of unrest that you're feeling from Black people that you might see come out on this survey?
Yeah, so this is a very different survey this time because we are asking about people's dreams and what system of government would really work for them. And so that's going to be different. But some of the things that we asked last time that we are asking again is about their level of trust of institutions. And Black people didn't trust institutions last time, right? We didn't trust the police, federal government, local government. I think the only thing we said we trusted was small businesses. And I expect that to be the same, if not more distrust this time. We also asked them about voting. And actually we had a lot of people share that they wanted to vote or plan to vote. And it will be interesting to see if that has increased or if people are less interested in voting, feeling like their vote is not enough. And so that's one thing that we're watching out for, as well as what kind of activities people are involved in. A lot less people last time were civically engaged outside of voting, meaning working in a community organization, protesting, things like that. And I think we'll see more people that have been engaged in some sort of civic activity this time.
Thelma?
One of the questions that I had, because I participated in census in the past, how do you think the results that you receive are going to impact or have some type of impact on local and state government officials in utilizing the data that you all collected in order to integrate some of the changes that can come from this from the responses that are received?
Yeah, and that's really our intention. So it's part of the reason why we have a strong field game that'll be launching this summer and partnering with grassroots organizations on the ground all across the country. We work in rural communities in the South, and we have been moving a Black economic agenda based on census results in towns like Valdosta, Georgia, where we have seen an increase of voter engagement because of our work. But our goal is to partner with more and more organizations across the country to be moving state and local campaigns, because that is where we're going to see a shift of balance of power.
Scott?
Hi, Scott Bolden here. I'm interested in your survey. I'm interested in what Black folks value as important in their lives on a day-to-day basis. Like, what are the top 5 things people care about most that look like me, or the top 10 things? Does your survey cover
we don't
those
know
things?
what they're. Yeah, I mean, we don't know what they're going to say this year. It just launched today. You can go to blackcensusproject.org. It takes about 10 minutes to do the survey. And so we will see, starting today, what people said. But in 2022, economics, their pocketbook, was the #1 thing Black people talked about. Affordability of childcare, affordability of healthcare, affordability of housing. But they also talked about their schools that their children are going to and whether there's enough resources for their kids to get a quality education, and about the relationship between Black people and the police. And so those were things that were top of mind for Black people in 2022. We expect that those things are still top of mind, but we're asking.
Do you ask them about the race question? You ask them about the race issue specifically? Like, how important is race and racism important to them on a day-to-day basis?
So we're not asking specifically about how important race is on a daily basis. We're more so asking about different systems of government that they would like to see, as well as what values they would want our country to have. But we do ask them why they don't trust systems, and typically how they're treated because of their race is the top reason.
All right, then, folks, go to blackcensusproject.org. blackcensusproject.org. As Christian said, it only takes you 10 minutes to fill the survey out. You can follow Black Futures Lab at all of these right here, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube as well. So again, go to blackcensusproject.org. Christian, when will it close?
We are going to keep going till we get to 300,000, but we are going to release the first set of data in August, September in order to help organizers and campaigners prepare for the midterm elections.
All right. Look forward to having you back to discuss that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, going to break. We come back. What are these young white folks at CPAC, you know, the crazy, deranged Conservative Political Action Committee, the conference they had this weekend? What are they saying about the future? One guy who was there shared his thoughts about it, which I'll tell you about it. Folks, we'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day to support this show and the 5 other shows here on the Black Star Network. If you want to contribute, please do so. For Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. That's also for credit cards, checks, and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
MAGA Republicans ended diversity programs, cut funding for Black students, and fired federal employees. And they won't stop there. Now, they've redrawn congressional maps so that they can rig the November elections. But we have the power to stop them. By voting yes for fair elections, we have the final say on who represents us in Congress. This is a temporary measure to restore fairness. They are not backing down, and neither can we. Make a plan to vote by April 21st and vote yes for fair elections.
A decade of love, joy, and power. Black Voters Matter is 10 years old, and we are just getting started. This is love with a purpose. This is Black joy in motion. This is unstoppable power. Across campuses, neighborhoods, and back roads. Let's go! We show up, not just to vote, but to be seen, to be heard, to belong. We ride together, we organize together. We remind each other that our voices matter, because they always have. Black Voters Matter is about more than ballots. It's about housing and healthcare, clean water and living wages, education, reproductive freedom, and dignity. It's about turning pain into action, turning belief into movement, turning community into power. We don't wait to be invited. We bring the energy. We bring the love. We bring the people. Because when Black communities come together, we don't just survive, we thrive. This is how change happens. This is how history moves. We organize, we build, we win.
Hey everybody, I'm T.D. Jakes, and I want to encourage you to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered. It'll blow your mind.
All right, y'all. CPAC held their conference over the weekend. No, this is not Drewski. This was actually one of the participants. They were complaining about his video, saying, my God, he was making fun of Erica Kirk. Nah, He was making fun of all y'all crazy folks. All the nutcases were there. Donald Trump spoke to them as well this weekend. And if you want to understand how crazy and rabid this next generation of MAGA is, all you have to do is listen to what they've been saying. The next guest, actually the next this video here, he was on MSNBC. He's with the Good Liars. You know, they always go around, they go to these MAGA events, and they ask these idiots questions, and they pretty much are stupid when they answer the questions. And so he was there talking to a number of these young white men. Listen to what he had to say.
Some of the people that were there who were younger, in their 20s, they said they came to kind of see the funeral of CPAC and just confirm that it really was over.
Well, what do they think is coming next? It dies, and what takes its place?
Well, I think it's turning point. I think it's turning point, and I have to say, I think some of the things that some of the younger people that I talked to were a little bit scary, because they were saying things that sounded a lot like white nationalism. It sounded racist, to be honest.
What did they say?
Well, they were saying basically that the United States was founded by Europeans, and that is the identity of the United States. And it was a mission from God to conquer a land, and the United States was conquered by Europeans, and now that they're blessed. The United States is blessed by God because of conquering the people that lived here before. And it was more about religion and more about Christianity and that identity, and that included things like teaching the Bible in school and teaching it literally, like Noah's flood actually happened, all these things actually happened. So it was very different from the people we talked to before who were like, Trump is number one. This was it seems like it's moving in a different direction that is not Trump, and to me, I find that worrying. And I've heard this from talking to people who have children who are in their 20s or in college. They'll say, "Oh, my son is watching Nick Fuentes all the time," and it's like people you wouldn't expect. Like I think a friend of mine would say that they had a friend who was just got really into Nick Fuentes. So it's happening, and you're kind of seeing it bubble to the surface now, which it's very different from the Trump rallies we've gone to. Like the way people are talking about this is very different than what we heard in the past.
Did we not tell y'all this was going to happen? Did we not tell y'all what was happening is that the right wing was scared to death of the direction of this country post George Floyd's murder? What did we tell you? The Black Lives Matter movement was the first black-centered movement in American history where a majority of the country agreed with it. These white conservatives said, no, we can't have this. And so, 2021, they said we got to destroy Black Lives Matter. 2022, they said, oh, critical race theory. We got to lump everything black and diverse under CRT. 2023, they said we've got to attack woke. 2024, it was all DEI, DEI. What's the result? Turning Point USA Rising, Charlie Kirk slamming Dr. King, saying the 1964 Civil Rights Act was a mistake. All of a sudden, these white folks are saying, oh no, the greatest threat to the future of America was happening to white men. They can't get jobs. They can't get married. Even white women don't want them. And so everything was about, oh my God, how things are rough for them. So when you start looking at polls and surveys, they start saying that white racism was just as debilitating as discrimination against black people. All these things were happening because what they saw, and what you have to understand is, and Donald Trump is at the forefront of this, he ran on white rage. My book is called White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. It's exactly what their whole focus was. And so it's no shock what they've been doing. And this is what happens again when you have these cult leaders, and you look at how they've been responding since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, since he was killed, how they have been responding, because they need white men angry, upset, saying, woe is me. Why is it that we're being hurt? This is what it's all about. Trump is advancing that, Stephen Miller, so is J.D. Vance. This is the Republican playbook Because the Republican Party today is the party of whiteness. It is about white fear. The 14th Amendment, that case, white fear. Ending and targeting DEI, white fear. Ending affirmative action in colleges and universities, white fear. Their entire future is predicated on scaring white people into believing that there's no future for them in this country, and as if everybody else, the others, those black people, the blacks, the Latinos, the Asians, the Native Americans, the undocumented, the illegals, the migrants, they're taking what's yours because they really believe that this is yours. Y'all might remember, we played for y'all that speech of Eric Schmidt, not Eric Schmidt, the U.S. Senator from Missouri. Last name is Schmidt. And remember, it is Eric Schmidt. Remember, he gave this speech. And he was, oh my God, he was up there and he was just talking about how our forefathers left this for us. He wasn't talking about me and you. He wasn't talking about nobody on this panel that looks like me. No, he was saying this is ours. This was meant for us. They only meant this for us. Too many Democrats were silent when he gave that racist white man call to arms. I mean, Congo, I want to go to you. They know what they're doing. They have to use fear to get a new generation of white boys angry and focused on standing with them because their white numbers are depleting.
That's all Trump has is anger and fear. That's all he had his first go around. I remember towards the end of the 2016 election, in one of his interviews, he was saying to America, this is basically your last chance. You know, if you want to save the culture, basically I got to be the one that becomes president. And this is what he's always done. I think it's also important, Roland, that you mentioned something that too many of these networks do not say. You said the 3 words, led by Trump. I get so frustrated when I see these networks talking about these young, neo-Nazis and racists and anti-Semites as if they're being conditioned by Nick Fuentes only. You had, at the last inauguration, Elon Musk give 2 Hail Hitler salutes. You see everything he's putting out on social media. And then, of course, you got Trump, who, slept, according to one of his former wives, slept with books and speeches by Hitler next to him, who's always talking about his genes. Stephen Miller, of course, you already mentioned. So this idea that these guys are being radicalized and socialized by these podcasters and the like, it starts at the top. Look, we know the last 2 Republican presidents before Trump, the Bushes, they had policies that we felt like were racist and hurt the black community and the like, but they never openly embraced being a party that allows in white supremacy. And J.D. Vance and all of these guys, they are partnering with people all across the globe. When you talk about France, when you talk about Germany, they are building a white internationalist network. And so if people are not willing to seriously talk about where it's coming from the top, they are never going to get anywhere, because all they're going to do is target the Nick Fuentes of the world and not deal with the real problem that we have neo-Nazis and racists and homophobes and anti-Semites in government. We got guys like Hegseth running a whole religious holy war against the people of Iran who wants to kill all Muslims. Like, start there and work the way down. And if you actually start at the top, we could actually maybe come up with some policies and ideas that can actually challenge these guys at the bottom.
Scott, Utah Senator Mike Lee tweeted this out over the weekend. He said, U.S. counties with more deaths than births, 2010, 34%. 2015, 43%, 2020, 60%, 2025, 65%, 2030, likely more. We need to change this. America needs to live, and to live, it needs life, children, and babies. Scott, let's be real clear. He's talking about white people. He's talking about white people. He's talking about white people. And Elon Musk has been going crazy on worldwide fertility rates, and they've really been talking about the fertility rates of white people. The fertility rates of white people in the United States, in France, in Germany, in Ireland, in Italy, in all of these European countries has been dropping. You cannot blame us for white people stop screwing. That ain't got nothing to do with us. That's white on white problem. That ain't got nothing to do with us. But see, they want to make it about us because as again, when white folk have white folk problem, let them white folk go figure it out. But that's what this is all about. And so their whole deal is they see what's coming. They are scared to death of America becoming a nation that is a majority Latino, Black, Asian American, Native American. These white folks are trying their best to hold on to power as long as they can, Scott.
Are you trying to suggest that if you have melanin in your skin, you have more sex and you like sex better than people who
No, what I'm saying is
white folks?
What
Is
I'm
that
saying
what you're
is
saying?
what I'm saying is
It may be true.
What I'm saying
It
is
may be
what
true.
I'm saying is white people need to go deal with their white people baby problem. They ain't got nothing to do with us.
Yeah, no question about it. But the race war is upon us. You and I talked about this 2 years ago, 4 years ago. Part of your book, or people say we're headed towards a race war. No, we're in a race war. We just haven't taken up arms yet in a mass capacity. But you're absolutely right about that. And, I think often about Janetta Cole, former president of Spelman College, who she was the first person that I heard say, what is generational racism about? We're not born with a racism gene, whether you're black, white, yellow, or brown. So where does generational racism come from? Why for 250 years or longer have black people and brown people been the victimization, or the subject rather, I don't like the term victimization, but the subject of racism in this country and literally around the world? And it's because they're being taught that. So when you talk about Charlie Kirk and Trump and Nick Fuentes and what have you, yeah, okay, but they're learning racism at home, first and foremost, right? They're learning white privilege at home. And so until you stop teaching generations of white kids, I don't care how much rap and hip hop they listen to, at home, they're being taught privilege and they're being taught racism. And then the Nick Fuentes will blossom and so forth and so on. But remember one thing, white racism and privilege has been with us for years. This isn't anything new. It's widespread because of social media now and because of the changes and what we will accept societal-wise or not. But they've always been here. And if they've always been here, Donald Trump has turbo boosted white rage and white fear because he's got a huge platform called the White House. Now, you and I are going to disagree on my last point. My last point is, with someone who has a bullhorn and the platform of a president like Donald Trump, who could care less about taking chances, he's one of the most powerful leaders of a movement, if you will, against black people, then what happens when he either steps down or is no longer with us or gets whatever he's going to get?
What do you mean what
when
happens?
his life is over? Well, who is going to replace
the whole party?
Donald Trump as head of this movement.
The whole party.
I don't think he's replaceable.
You're wrong.
And you can say MAGA's phase, but MAGA's been here already. You just know more about it now.
You're wrong.
I'll tell you right now, I don't think it has the life or the fire.
You're wrong.
At the level we're fighting right now.
You're absolutely wrong.
We need to take advantage of that. I may be wrong in your opinion, but I'm right in my opinion.
No, you're not.
I think there's life for MAGA after Donald Trump.
No, you're not.
I know you disagree with that.
No, you're not.
You always disagree with shit.
No, you're
But
not.
I'm just saying.
Because first of all,
I don't think
again,
it survives without
listen,
Donald Trump.
you wrong about
Give me the top 3 reasons why it survives without Donald
easy,
Trump.
Scott.
Number one.
First of all, Scott, it's real simple. You're wrong about pledging Kappa, and you're wrong about this. This is very simple. MAGA, Scott, listen. So let me educate you, okay? MAGA is the Republican Party. There's no such thing as the Republican Party and MAGA. It is the Republican Party. It is. 2, even if Donald Trump is not sitting in the Oval Office, Donald Trump will be controlling who gets endorsed, who gets backed. He's going to throw support. He will still be controlling the apparatus. I'm very clear about
old.
Scott.
He's too old.
Scott, you're not listening. Scott,
the age game.
Scott, you're not
and
listening.
What about if he died? What about after he died?
Scott, listen.
You
still
agree with
Scott,
that?
will you listen? Again,
I'm listening. I got 2 fingers up. What's the third?
The theories of MAGA, the agenda of MAGA is fused throughout the entire party. You are making the same mistake that Hillary Clinton made in 2016 and Biden made in 2020 when they said, oh, when Trump is gone, the old Republican Party is coming back. There is no old Republican Party, Thelma. The Republican Party today is MAGA. MAGA is the Republican Party. It ain't going anywhere. Thelma?
They've been racist.
Scott, Thelma now gets to talk.
Yeah.
Scott, Thelma now gets to talk.
Always going to her. You need to come back to me,
Scott. I'm not coming back to you. Thelma, go.
Come back to me.
No.
I got stuff to say. You
Scott, stop talking. Go, Thelma.
When we start talking about the identity of the Republican Party, one thing that I will give them credit for is understanding how to just make it plain for their people to get it in their long-term memory. That's the one thing that I would give them, because what they're saying is, if we say it over and over, that means it's true. And we know with the white community, they don't fact check it. But if you bring that to a minority, you bring it to a black person, I'm like, look, I know you lying. That don't even sound right. We questioning it. But the white community, the white men specifically that are in MAGA, know that we can make white mediocre men believe that they are on the bottom of the totem pole, and we got to strap up our boots and make sure that we are still standing at the end of this. So they're using white fear to target the mediocre white dumb men because they fall for anything. And it's no wonder that they are afraid of their race declining, which is why they went after Roe v. Wade, because white women don't even want to be with them. So if you can't even get your white women to come and procreate with you, then you know you do. So now we got to go and continue to chip away and add these nuggets and add these dynamites to make these mediocre white men, because what Trump said, he only want dumb men, specifically white men, around him because it makes him feel superior. So if he didn't tell y'all that y'all was dumb before, he definitely told y'all that's why they target y'all. That's why they are reinforcing over and over and over again, because that's the only way that they're going to keep y'all in line with their theory to make it make sense, so that y'all can continue this false narrative as if y'all are being targeted when y'all are not.
In fact, if you want to understand their racism right now, this was a tweet that was sent out little more than an hour ago by the taxpayers paid for this. This is the Department of Homeland Security. These dumbass posted, "It's time to go home. Take advantage of the historic and generous CBP home deal we are offering to illegal aliens, a $2,600 exit bonus and a free flight to your home country." This is what they put up about Haiti. Haiti is waiting for you to come home. Fly DHS Airlines for free. Then they put fly to Cambodia for free. Fly to Bangladesh for free. But you got to remember, Trump has no problems telling white Afrikaners, y'all are more than welcome to come here, because they want only white people in America.
Yeah.
All right, I got to go to break, short break. When I come back, you know, I really was trying not to have to deal with this Chili from TOC stuff, and then Nick Cannon and Amber, whatever her name is. But I'm gonna have to deal with it, because clearly a lot of people fell asleep during a huge portion of their history class. My deconstruction when we come back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
MAGA Republicans ended diversity programs, cut funding for black students, and fired federal employees. And they won't stop there. Now, they've redrawn congressional maps so that they can rig the November elections. But we have the power to stop them. By voting yes for fair elections, we have the final say on who represents us in Congress. This is a temporary measure to restore fairness. They are not backing down, and neither can we. Make a plan to vote by April 21st and vote yes for fair elections.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Ryan Wilson, CEO and co-founder of The Gathering Spot, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
All right, y'all. Okay. First and foremost, this was not planned. I said classes in session. We had some students with Clark Atlanta University visiting us today, so this was not planned, but we're going to work with it, okay? So, y'all, let's deal with this here. This weekend was absolutely stupid, crazy, outlandish. First and foremost, we find a story gets posted saying that Chili from TLC is MAGA, all right? Midas Touch comes out and says that she gave to Donald Trump and Republicans. She follows a number of different MAGA folks as well. And of course, she also retweeted a meme that called Michelle Obama a man. Well, a lot of damage control from Chili. She got this video.
Hey guys, I wanted to come on here to address a few things that's circulating on the internet that's very concerning to me. Let me say this first. I have the utmost respect and admiration for Michelle Obama, and I would never say or do anything that is disrespectful to her or to any woman. I would never do that. And I had no clue that this repost had happened until I started getting phone calls and text messages from everybody, and I immediately went to my page to see what was going on. Now, mind you, I'm not very computer savvy, so I'm looking for this repost button, and I see that all of these buttons are very, very close to each other. And clearly I was scrolling and my thumb hit the repost button. Again, I had no clue that something like this happened until I got all the calls.
Okay. Now, she also said that she didn't realize she was given to Donald Trump and the Republican folks. She thought she was given to veterans groups. Okay. All right. Now listen, okay? I understand this idea when it comes to, you know what, I don't necessarily know, you know, these things happen. I'm not really savvy at social media. I get all that. here's my problem. Okay, go to my iPad, Anthony. So, y'all. So right now, okay, this is a video of Brandy getting her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Y'all, it's only 4 buttons on Instagram. Okay, the far left button is the heart if you want to like it. The one right next to it is the comment button. The one next to it is the repost, reshare button, is the repost button. And the one next to that is the share button. Now, y'all, when I'm scrolling, I'm scrolling, I'm just saying, you come to me now. I'm just saying, it's a little hard to say you were scrolling and you accidentally hit the button that's the 3rd from the left or the 2nd from the right. That's a little hard for me to fathom that one. So I'm just saying, okay? So folk are weighing in, and you know she gonna have to deal with this. But guess what? She got some explaining to do about all those 14, 17 contributions that she made in her name that matched her legal name in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Just saying, that might be impacting some ticket sales for the tour that's going on. So we'll see what happens with that. Then, of course, my goodness, Stephen A. Smith, he interviews this black conservative, Anton Daniels, and you know, I really gets on my nerves when these black conservatives tout stuff that Trump did for black people. That's a lie. And I saw this, and go ahead and play it.
When you decided to support Trump in 2024, what was it about the MAGA movement that made you support it? Was it the fact that you are, as you described, or was there something different transpiring in 2024 that you saw compelled you to gravitate towards that?
Well, the first thing is I felt like the election was stolen from him in 2020. There's no way that anybody can convince me that Joe Biden is the most popular president of all time and he got over 81 million votes. I'm not going for it. The second thing is that I started to take a deeper look at my own life, right? Because especially as black people in the community, we taught to automatically vote Democrat regardless because we black, right?
Yeah.
But when I started to deep dive into the things that Democrats stood for, it wasn't the fact that Republicans or Trump or MAGA first got my attention. The first thing that got my attention is the things that I didn't align with the party that I had been voting for based off of what my family told me to do, right? I don't believe in men and women's bathrooms. I don't believe in, you know, a lot of the stuff, my dollars going to the federal government and letting them manage my money more than I can. You know, I believe in smaller government. I believe in spirituality. I believe in a lot of the things. And so when I started to figure out, what are we doing? Why am I voting this way? I started to explore, you know, what about Trump didn't I like? And I realized that it was more propaganda that was fed to me and that, you know, he would supposedly be racist and all of this stuff. And then I started to evaluate every other president that came before him. And I realized that he's just a quote unquote straight shooter, right? I mean, he just tells it like it is, regardless of whether you agree with him or not. And most of the things that he said, I aligned with.
Well, I didn't hear. Okay. All right. So what you didn't hear him say is a clip that I saw. He touted Trump's making HBCU funding permanent, which is a lie. He touted opportunity zones when they actually cannot present me. And when Trump was here the first time, I hit the Trump White House asking for documentation that proves that opportunity zones has actually benefited black people and low-income people. That was a black preacher who was at the announcement at the White House from Baltimore. He came on the show. He spoke at the announcement of the opportunity zones. He came on the show. And 6 months later, he came on and said it wasn't working for black people and low-income people. So when I hear people like Anton say that, it's a lie. First of all, Donald Trump did not have permanent funding for HBCUs. That was a program, a $250 million program that was created under President George W. Bush. It was continued under President Barack Obama. It expired. The bill was sponsored by Congresswoman Alma Adams of North Carolina, who was the co-chair of the HBCU caucus. Trump didn't know shit about this bill, y'all. He had no idea. It's a $250 million bill, okay? Only $85 million of the $250 million goes to HBCUs. The rest goes to his Hispanic serving institutions. That's the only thing that was made permanent. So when someone sits there and goes, well, Trump made permanent funding for HBCUs, but then you don't actually tell the rest of the story, then you're just sitting here making up some shit. That's what you're doing. But we know the facts, and the reality is $17 billion went to HBCUs under Biden-Harris. Fact. Y'all notice none of these black conservatives can ever give you the actual number, the dollars that went to HBCUs under Trump. I wonder why. Because they know they're lying. So I would love for Senator Tim Scott, who always touts opportunity zones, to present for me the data. Show me the data of where opportunity zones have been a panacea for black people and low-income people. Oh, they've been great for developers, but not for the people they were intended for. Then, of course, that was this clip of Nick Cannon and interviewing MAGA lover Amber Rose.
Part of the Republican Party.
That's right. Former Democrat, former liberal.
Yeah.
I was a liberal Democrat my whole life.
Is that because the bag has got so intense and so heavy that you had a whole nother, you up there with the elite now?
Not even close, not even close. Democrats don't care about black people.
Okay,
and they don't care about people, they don't care about people of color. And the Republicans do, and that's the misconception.
And you know what? I agree with you 100%.
Thank you,
People
Nick.
don't know that the Democrats is the party of the KKK.
Yep.
People don't know that the Republicans are the party that freed the slaves.
Yep.
I mean, both of you and I have some conservative views. You just a little bit more outspoken about it than I am. And I honestly, I don't subscribe to either party. I rock with W.E.B. Du Bois when he said there's no such thing as two parties. It's just one evil party with two different names. So
yeah, I mean, look, listen, I'm not married to any party.
Right.
I voted for Donald Trump because we had two options, and he was definitely by far the better option for us. And as of now, I agree with a lot of things that he's doing.
Cleaning house.
Yeah.
He doing what he said he was going to do.
Guess what? If there's a time where I don't agree, I'll say I don't agree.
Yeah. We got the Gulf of America now.
Period.
Charging, he's like the club. He's charging a $5 million bottle service fee to get into the country.
I know. Listen.
Okay. All right. Where shall I begin? Paul Harvey, who was the Rush Limbaugh of his day in the early stages of his career, later he became a different figure. He used to always say in his radio commentary, now the rest of the story. See, it's real easy. It's real easy to throw out stuff. I love Amber Rose saying, I'm not down with a party, but earlier you said the Republican Party loves black people and Democrats don't. So you were talking party. And then Nick throws out a W.B. Du Bois quote. Now, many of you may go, well, Du Bois said that? Well, if you're gonna say that, we'll provide the context. Because see, it was in October of 1956, after they go to my iPad, where W.B. Du Bois gave he wrote a piece in The Nation. And the piece that was in The Nation, W.B. Du Bois talked about the issue of the election and how he would vote and why he would not vote. It was a nearly 1,700-word piece. So it wasn't just a quote that Du Bois gave. He literally laid out in clear, precise language why he wasn't voting. We have republished that piece on blackstarnetwork.com. Go to my iPad. So, Anthony, if y'all go to blackstarnetwork.com, you can actually read the piece that Du Bois wrote, Why I Won't Vote, which was published in the Nation magazine on October 20th, 1956. And so context is critically important. Context matters. So let me go to the heart of the issue. And so let's just go ahead and just go to class today. Because again, the problem that we have today is that folks say things in interviews. They say things on TikTok and Instagram and Fanbase and Snapchat and Spill and Spoutable, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, all these platforms. They say things and see people take it and they run with it. And I'm not going to say young people. No, guess what? Young people, middle-aged people, seasoned saints, folk who do not have the information, they hear it, and then they go, oh, well, so-and-so said it, and so-and-so gotta know, because so-and-so is a celebrity, or so-and-so's on television, or so-and-so is on the radio, and so surely they know what they're talking about. And so folks then run with that, and the things take off. So first of all, let's walk through some things here. Democratic Party actually was a party before the Republican Party. That's first and foremost, okay? And so when we talk about the Democratic Party, founded 1792, all right? 1776, blah, 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 whole America founded, go through the whole constitutional fight, Democratic Party founded. People supported Thomas Jefferson and others. Now all of a sudden, you get to the 1800s. You have abolitionists. You have folks like Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth. You have folks like Harriet Tubman. You have Charles Sumner. You have Thaddeus Stevens. And then, of course, you have Abraham Lincoln. You have the Republican Party. The Republican Party is created to oppose slavery. Now, let me say it again. You had Southern Democrats who were in support of slavery. You had Northern Democrats who were against slavery. So when someone says that it was the Republicans that freed the slaves, again, that's factually incorrect. What you have to understand is that the Emancipation Proclamation did not free the slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation freed those who were in rebellious territories. Lincoln actually had no authority over the states that seceded from the Union. So you had a battle going on. You had what was called the Radical Republicans, again, led by Sumner in the Senate, Stevens in the House, who were ardently opposed to slavery. They were the Radical Republicans led 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, those Reconstruction amendments. You had Northern Democrats who did not stand with the Southern Democrats. Y'all, that's what was happening. Now, when Nick says, oh, the Democrats created the KKK, Nick left out something important. The Southern Democrats created the KKK because the Southern Democrats were opposed to the end of slavery. Now, see, when someone then says that, oh, it was the Republicans who were against the Democrats, that's wrong. Because you do know there were Southern Republicans. Some of y'all may not be aware of this. There was a movement, before I actually get to that one, y'all, there was a group called the Redeemers. You ever heard of them? Yeah, they were called the Redeemers. See, the Redeemers were Republicans in the South who did not like what was happening with these black folks in charge. The Redeemers were battling, okay, right here, by 1873. Many white Southerners were calling for redemption, the return of white supremacy and the removal of rights for blacks instead of Reconstruction. This political pressure to return to the old order was oftentimes backed up by mob and paramilitary violence, with the Ku Klux Klan, the White League, and the Red Shirts assassinating pro-Reconstruction politicians and terrorizing Southern blacks. Within a few years, Northern attentions were consumed by apathy and fatigue, and the South slipped back toward many of the patterns of the antebellum era. Yes, the Redeemers. Now, here's where people forget history. You had the KKK, Southern Democrats. But you know what I never hear any of these Republicans ever talk about? It's the Lily White movement. The Lily White movement. Let's go to the Texas State Historical Association. This is about the rise of the Lily White movement in Texas Republican politics. Oh my God, did I just associate Lily White and Republican? I sure did. It said the Lily White movement began within the Republican Party after the Civil War. Now see, come back to me. If many of y'all had read our good friend Gerald Horne, you would have understood the role that slavery played when it came to the Revolution. He has a great book called The Counter-Revolution of 1776, Slave Resistance and the Origins of the United States of America. Y'all might want to get Gerald's book on that. But see, Gerald talked about fascism in the Texas Civil War, which predated the American Civil War. Yeah, that's right here in this book. The Counter-Revolution of 1836, Texas Slavery and Jim Crow and the Roots of U.S. Fascism. Y'all might want to read that. See, then if you want to understand how we also got to this point of white folks and racism and Jim Crow, then you might want to read Nicholas Guyot's book, Bind Us Apart, How Enlightened Americans Invented Racial Segregation. See, when you read these books, you begin to understand that the issue was not Democrats wanted black folks enslaved, Republicans wanted black folks free. What you have to understand is there were white Democrats who did not want black people to be free and white Republicans who did not want black people to be free. That's why you got a thing called the Lily White faction, the Lily White movement. Do y'all know who was one of the leaders of the Lily White movement? A certain President Herbert Hoover. Yeah, President Herbert Hoover. Because see, the Lily White movement had Southern Republicans aligning with Southern Democrats to oppose black advancement. The Lily White movement. So if you're going to mention Democrats, Southern Democrats, and the KKK, Nick, then you need to mention Southern Republicans and the Lily White movement. Now, if you go further, one of the most racist presidents we had followed Hoover. Hoover, Republican. It was Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson, Southerner. Woodrow Wilson, who created the League of Nations. Woodrow Wilson, who we credit for all these things, but it was Woodrow Wilson who reimposed segregation in the federal government. It was Woodrow Wilson who showed the movie The Birth of a Nation at the White House. Woodrow Wilson, a violent racist. Woodrow Wilson, the same man who threw William Monroe Trotter out of the White House because William Monroe Trotter challenged him. It was William Monroe Trotter who was pushing him and who led the fight nationally against Birth of a Nation. You might want to read Kerry Greenwood's book, Black Radical, The Life and Times of William Monroe Trotter. You see, a racist white Republican in Herbert Hoover was followed by a racist Democrat in Woodrow Wilson. Republican, Democrat, what did they have in common? They were both white. Now, if you start going through history. Oh, by the way, if you really want to understand the period of Reconstruction, first and foremost, get W.B. Du Bois' book, Black Reconstruction in America, 1860 to 1880. And then if you want to get that book, also get Eric Foner's book, Reconstruction, America's Unfinished Revolution, 1863 to 1877. Yeah, you'll learn a lot more about this stuff. And then you can realize this tricky history in this country. So what then happens? Wilson leaves, and all of a sudden, FDR comes in. FDR wasn't a fan of black people. Despite all you hear, FDR, segregationist beliefs, because he was a white man. Oh, I know he was from up north, but you still had some white folks up north who felt that way. And so it was A. Philip Randolph and others who pushed him. Then all of a sudden, of course, all of a sudden you had FDR. And you got to remember, FDR had a vice president, Henry Wallace, socialist, progressive. Truman runs in 1948. What also happens in 1948? The National Democratic Party begins to shift. You begin to see the National Democratic Party put a civil rights plank in their convention. Republicans had always had that, but see, black folks you saw the fracture on the Republican side, and so you start seeing people like Hubert Humphrey. And so if you go listen to the speech that Hubert Humphrey gave at the Democratic National Convention in 1948, you would hear him arguing for the civil rights plank. Now, while that was happening, there was a group of folk who were meeting elsewhere. They later became known as the Dixiecrats, led by Strom Thurmond. And so when you had the election of 1948, you had Truman, Wallace, Strom Thurmond running. That all impacted. Now, I know some of y'all may be saying, well, I don't understand, because in 1948, didn't Truman desegregate the armed services? Yeah, he did, because he was under pressure. Because, see, also Henry Wallace had a very strong anti-discrimination platform. He also believed in a national health care platform, and so that's what you had going on there. But Truman wasn't that, loving of black people. In fact, if you read Howard Bryant's new book called Kings and Pawns, Jackie Robinson and Paul Robeson in America, he writes in here, and he says it very plainly, that this is actually what he says. By desegregating the military and guaranteeing fair opportunity, at least on paper, Truman neutralized Wallace's advantage with black voters and isolated the Robeson-backed Wallace threat as leftists that real Americans could not trust. This resonated with black Americans hungry to be seen by whites as loyal Americans. The legacy of the 1948 presidential election was the faith black voters would place in the Democratic Party, while often reaping the barest of minimums for their critical support. Truman became the first American president to campaign in a black district. According to Truman biographer David McCullough, in all the months of campaigning, the cheering in Harlem for Truman was the loudest of all. And in fact, this was the only black campaign stop Truman made in 1948. I'm still confused here. What do we have here? Easy. We have racism in America, Democrats and Republicans. That's in 48. You now go to 56. Du Bois, in his essay, he's writing about how the Southern Democrats, by controlling the critical committees in the Senate, were stopping anti-lynching bills from being passed, stopping civil rights. He said, I don't have any faith in Eastland or the Republicans. I have no faith in Eastland, Truman, or Eisenhower. He said, that's why I'm not voting. Read the essay. Those are in his own words. And then, of course, you now go into the 1960s. JFK runs for president in 1960. What happens? MLK gets arrested in Georgia. Coretta Scott King can't get in touch with her husband. Jackie Robinson is pushing Richard Nixon to phone Coretta Scott King. He doesn't do it. JFK does. Black people see that as him caring about civil rights. Black support swings towards JFK away from the Republicans. Then, of course, Kennedy gets killed in November 1963. LBJ becomes president, the same LBJ who gutted the 1957 Civil Rights Act. Anybody who wants to read Robert Caro's book, The Years of Lyndon Johnson, The Path to Power, That's right. You can read this book right here. Then you can read the next one, Lyndon B. Johnson, Means of Ascent. Then, of course, you can read the third installment of that, Lyndon Johnson, Master of the Senate. And what you discover is that Lyndon Johnson was friends. A lot of those segregationists, Richard Russell and many others, Southern Democrat. But who was he also going against? The Northern liberal, Hubert Humphrey. LBJ becomes president. Who does he pick as his vice president? Liberal Hubert Humphrey. What then happens? LBJ takes that civil rights bill of Kennedy. There was one bill, splits it into 3 bills, becomes the 64 Civil Rights Act, 65 Voting Rights Act, 68 Fair Housing Act. Why is this important? Because the pro-segregationists became pro-civil rights. LBJ says, when he passed the 64 Civil Rights Act, I've guaranteed the South to the conservatives for the next generation, because he saw what was coming. So what happens in 1964? Senator Barry Goldwater runs for president. Who is Barry Goldwater? Republican. He runs against LBJ. Republican Barry Goldwater opposes the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That's what he ran on. Jackie Robinson says, I can't support that. Jackie Robinson, black Republican, campaigns for the white Democrat, Lyndon B. Johnson. Why? Because LBJ supported civil rights. So now you had the switch. And then what happens in 1968? Nixon runs. Southern strategy. 64, Strom Thurmond flips from Democrat to the Republicans. 1970, Jesse Helms, one of the most racist U.S. senators, flips. He was senator of North Carolina, flips from Democrat to the Republican. What I'm showing y'all is American history is about whiteness. This ain't about Republicans are great, Democrats are awful. Democrats are amazing, Republicans are pathetic. It's called whiteness. Whiteness is what has driven this entire thing. Because when you understand Ronald Reagan, who runs for governor, how does he run? He runs when they had a bill that said, hey, it's a statewide amendment. You don't have to sell your house. You can have covenants to not sell to anybody black. Yeah, he ran on that. The same Reagan who later launched his campaign for president in the same county where Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman were murdered, the 3 civil rights workers. Same Ronald Reagan. The same Republican Ronald Reagan that opposed the sanctions against apartheid. Same Ronald Reagan. Same Ronald Reagan who made up the welfare queen. Same Ronald Reagan. And when y'all talk about housing, understand, it was 1968 Fair Housing Act was filibustered for 2 years. It was black Republican Edward Brooke of Massachusetts who broke the filibuster in February of 1968. King gets assassinated on April 4th, 1968. LBJ sends a letter to the House the next day saying, let's pass this bill, because Dr. King gave his life for this bill. 9 days later, bill's passed. King got assassinated. That's the only way the Fair Housing Act got passed. Who was filibustering the 1968 Fair Housing Act? Northern Republicans and Southern Democrats, because they didn't want black folks living there. Y'all understand, if you actually understood in this country, just read Richard Rothstein's book, The Color of Law, A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America. And then while you're doing that, read Gene Slater's book, Freedom to Discriminate, How Realtors Conspired to Segregate Housing and Divide America. Y'all, I'm laying out to you American history. American history has no party that is a savior for black people. American history shows that Republicans and Democrats have been anti-black. And you've had Republicans and Democrats who've been supportive of African Americans. So the real issue for black folks is not where did the Republicans stand in 1865? It's not where did the Democrats stand in 1964. The real question is, where does the Republican Party stand in 2026? And where does the Democratic Party stand in 2026. And even when we talk about Republican Democrat Party, where they stand, the issue is, where do individual candidates stand in 2026? So when Amber Rose says Republicans love black people and they're doing more for black people, when Anton Daniel said, oh, how great the GOP is, please, by all means, show me the policies where the Republican Party stands on that is beneficial to black people. And I will show you the policies where they stand that's harmful to black people. And just like I will criticize Democrats on issues where I believe they are harmful to black people, I'm also going to articulate where the issues are when it comes to where they stand for black people. And if I had to sit here today in March of 2026 and say, come the November midterms, of the two parties, where are we as black people more likely to receive redress and have the ability to advance an agenda that supports our people? It's not going to be through the Republican Party. There are 4 black Republicans who are in the House. All of them will not be there come January 2027. You've got 1 black Republican in the United States Senate. If Democrats win in the House, you will have African Americans who will be chairing numerous committees who will begin to have the power. See, y'all, I just believe in facts, not emotion, not drama, not made up stuff, but actual facts. And the problem is when you throw out, the Democrats created the KKK. What's the context? The Southern Democrats did. But if you're going to mention that, you better mention the Lily White movement and the Republicans. If you're going to mention that, you better mention the Redeemers. If you're going to mention that, you better mention the John Birch Society. If you're going to mention that, you better mention the Tea Party. You better mention Turning Point USA. See, we can sit here and play this game all day, but see, what I'm not going to do, as somebody who actually can read, who actually understands context and nuance, what I'm not going to do or listen to celebrities who have no depth, no knowledge, no understanding, and who are he-hen and kikiing and he-hawing. You will never, when somebody, and I'll be happy to ask Nick Cannon, Nick, when you say I stand with Trump, by all means, tell us how. Tell us why. Tell us the policies. Look, Chili, if you gave money to Republicans and if you voted for Trump, own it. Don't run from it. Be honest about it. Phil Perry, the singer, he blocked me several years ago because he big time MAGA. Jazz singer, Cassandra Wilson, big time MAGA. Okay, own it. Because see, I know a lot of black Republicans, a lot of them. And now many of them, they can't stand Trump, but they're still black Republicans. So my whole deal is if you're going to stand on it. But what we're not going to do, is use social media and feed our people half information, out of context information, and not tell them the rest of the story. I'll bring my panel in right now. Omar Congo, your thoughts.
Well, I mean, the way you broke it down is superb. I mean, the class was indeed in session. And just like you do with Stephen A. Smith, just like you do with other celebrities out there in these spaces, like was Pharrell a couple of months ago, you're not interested in destroying these individuals. You're interested in educating people with facts. And that's really important. And what's also important is that we need to recognize in our community that so many of these entertainers are not leaders unless they choose to be leaders in their respective fields and get out there and speak. You know, when I look at somebody like a Viola Davis, you know, she's somebody who uses her her platform to call out other artists to be better, to know their history. Like, she's taken up that mantle. And Angela Bassett, you know, for example, these guys are not that. Amber Rose, I mean, I've always looked at Nick Cannon as a comedian, right? And so the way that people big up what they say, and Chili, an entertainer who I've never heard speak anything about, you know, black politics, but now she's out there destroying their tour, right? And, you know, just like you said, just own the fact that you've donated to these guys. But if they don't want to do that, then they are responsible for all of the heat and smoke that they're taking. But we in our community, we need to stop giving these people this. I'm not saying on this platform, we need to talk about it, but I'm saying we need to stop looking at these guys as the people to trust because they are entertainers, because they are multimillionaires, because they've been on television forever. We give them a certain type of credibility that they do not deserve. Nick Cannon couldn't tell you half the story of what you told, a quarter of what the story you just told over the last 20 minutes to a half hour. And so what I appreciate is when I see people saying, hey, Chili, you can do what you want to do. You can be who you want to be, but I'm not coming to the concert. You know, I'm about to sell my ticket. Like, we're in a space now where black people are being physically and verbally and spiritually attacked every single day. And it's important that we're making the conscious choices to choose where and whom we're going to give our money to who don't represent our causes. So people can talk about cancel this, cancel that. I'm just talking about us doing the right things for our own spirits. And so when these two are coming out, they deserve all of the smoke that they're getting, and I'm very interested to see how they respond. But ultimately, I'm not going to give them too much attention after I make my own post about this, because we can't look at these guys as our leaders. We don't do it here on the Black Star Network, and people can't do that out in Black America or in other parts of America as well, like in the MAGA sphere and the quote-unquote manosphere, who are going to jump to claim Amber Rose and Nick Cannon just like they did Kanye.
See, Thelma, this is what a lot. Again, I pay attention to what people say, and I love these loudmouth people who say you just caping for Democrats and you a shield and you bug dancing. I have never identified as a Democrat. I ain't never identified as a Republican, and I don't even waste my breath identifying as an independent. I'm black, and when I decide how I'm going to vote, I decide based upon a set of issues that are my issues, and I'm willing to defend that vote or those issues at any time. What I find to be interesting is that when people say these things, and if they say, well, you know, I'm supporting this, well, because of the policies, first thing I go, which ones? Mm-hmm. Can you name them? So whether you're Democrat or Republican, name them. And the problem that I have is, again, I was challenging a brother when I was in Birmingham who said that he didn't support Kamala, and then he said he didn't support Hillary. And when I hit him, I was like, well, okay, well, you didn't support Hillary. He was like, well, he brought the hot sauce. And I was like, that's your reason? I said, now you do know stories were done on her and hot sauce 20 years before that clip came out on the Breakfast Club and before the Beyonce song came out, but you fell for that? And then he couldn't even articulate why he was against Kamala. I said, I find it interesting you actually can't articulate why you against Hillary or Kamala. I said, does it come down to they were both women? And the brother was running and gun. But see, again, though, I can't put a finger on his level. I can. But it's amazing to me how folk do not want to defend their position. And again, if you want to defend it, I say defend it. But you better have your facts together when you defend it.
This is one of the main issues I have with individuals like Nick Cannon and Amber Rose, is specifically Nick Cannon as a man. You wait until you get in the presence of someone that thinks like you and have the same position as you to now come to the forefront and say, oh yeah, I fucks with Trump. Okay, well, why you didn't say that during the election? Why you didn't say that in the previous election? Why are you misrepresenting what our history is in order to be complicit and subscribe to the whitery of it all? And I just, for the life of me, when I look at a Nick Cannon, the lack of credibility that he has, and I'm like, this is the same man that gets on TV and talks about how he's uncircumcised, how he raw dogs women, how he has broken homes, how he cannot remember his children's names, which in that sense, you lack credibility in your own personal space. So therefore, don't put the lack of credibility on our history. Don't disintegrate our history because it doesn't make you comfortable in the skin that you are in to sit before white people that you got to beg for money in order to be on places and platforms, because that's what you chose. You made that choice to subscribe to the whitery of it all. We didn't make that choice. Our ancestors didn't make that choice. So for him and the Amber Roses of the world, like, when I think about her, she don't even know how to align herself with her whiteness. You making statements that your white people don't even accept you. That to me tells me that people like that have identity crisis. And when they have that, they are more than likely going to disrespect their blackness before they disrespect their whiteness. And for these two ignorant fools to get on a platform and think that they were not going to get checked when you play with our history, we're going to check you every single time, and we're going to put you where you belong because, one, Nick didn't want to tell us where he belonged. Now we know. And even with Chili and the fact that she want to be behind the scenes, we have a lot of behind the scenes Black Republicans that agree with the foolery of it all. Let us know that you are okay with pedophiles. Let us know that you are okay with men unaliving children for their fetishes. Let us know that you are okay with the racism that they have continue to pour out in this country. Let us know that, because I'm pretty sure if you were never caught, Chili, you would have never came to the front. And that is the reason why skeletons are being revealed in this season, and it's being revealed so loudly that they can't even come out and own their own shit. Our people, listen, our ancestors owned their shit and they stood on it. And I'll be damned if these three stooges come to the front and play with our history.
A lot of folk, and to go to my iPad, may not know about the Southern Manifesto of 1956. And you had 82 members of the House, 19 senators, who signed this Southern Manifesto. And they were led by that racist you see on the left there, Judge Smith, Howard Smith of Virginia, who was the chairman of the House Rules Committee. And they came out against the Brown versus Board of Education decision, Scott. Now, here's why that's important present day. Because, Scott, a number of Donald Trump's federal judicial picks, when asked in their confirmation hearings, did they agree with the Brown versus Board of Education decision, many of them wouldn't answer. Let me say this again to Anton and Amber and all the other MAGA-aligned Black people. Go back, Anthony. The Southern Manifesto was written in 1956. It was laid out. And they were against, look at this here, it urged Southerners to exhaust all lawful means to resist the chaos and confusion that would result from school desegregation. And several of Donald Trump's own judicial picks would not publicly affirm the Brown versus Board of Education decision. That's how you bring the past to the present and connect it. Now, I don't recall, Scott, a single Democratic nominee under Clinton, under Obama, under Biden, that would not affirm Brown versus Board of Education as established legal precedent. Scott, when I listen to these people talk about, the policies and I F with Trump. So if you F with Trump, do you F when he got rid of the settlement that Biden-Harris negotiated for the Black people in Loudoun County, Alabama, who for 30 years, they've had sewage backed up into their front yards, their houses, and their backyards? Donald Trump called that a DEI settlement and got rid of it. Anton, if you stand with Trump and MAGA, do you support them pulling out of the Cancer Alley lawsuit where black people in Louisiana near the petrochemical plants were high incidence of cancer, and the Biden White House was a part of the lawsuit, but Trump pulled them out? See, I would have to ask anybody, if you F with Trump, do you agree with Trump's housing and urban development pulling out of a lawsuit in Dallas where an HOA discriminated against low-income black people? See, if you F with Trump, do you agree with the Trump U.S. attorney in Los Angeles after a jury convicted a white deputy sheriff of viciously beating a black woman who was recording the arrest of a black man? The jury convicted him. The Trump U.S. attorney came in, offered a post-conviction plea deal that reduced the felony to a misdemeanor. See, Scott, I just want to ask him, if you F with Trump, do you agree with the two cops who were convicted in Washington, D.C. of chasing down a black man who ends up being killed? They convicted, but Trump pardons those two cops. I'm just curious, Scott, if you F with Trump, do you agree with his DOJ pulling out and refusing to move forward with the indictments against two cops in the death of Breonna Taylor? See, if we gonna talk about this, let's talk specifics, Scott.
So you also got to include Breonna Taylor and what they did in that case recently.
That was the last one you said.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you. Let me say this. I want to talk to your audience and the students behind you, and you're going to give me 1 minute to do this, right? That history lesson you just gave, I got to tell you, brother, you know, you and I go at it all the time for the last 17 years. That was a history lesson that I hope that we package and put on social media, but more importantly, we send it to our friends, because the average American, that was American history. See, that wasn't Black history. You gave us American history, right? It was a TED Talk. It was precise. It was backed up by books. And you laid it out in a way that if you just listen, right, you'll learn something on this show. This is an excellent show for education. And I remember when you and I, we left Urban One. You had the morning show. And I remember seeing on your last broadcast. Yeah, right. I talked about how much I had learned by just arguing with you or fighting with you or just listening to you. And I hope Black America listened to that tape, or you tape it, or they tape it and send it to their friends and enemies, because it really laid out the history of America and race relations in this country at the corner or the intersection of race, racism, government, politics, business, all wrapped up in one. But it also, more importantly, said this, right? These entertainers and celebrities, and, you know, they are just so ignorant, right? They just won't read. And I don't care who it is. I don't care how many records you sell. You know, you're just listening to sound bites, right? Without the context. And when you listen to the context and the history, they cannot ride with Trump, right? They cannot. And so as a result, they're just pure ignorance, right? And so it's hard for me to listen to them, because when you juxtapose what they're saying with the context, with the history, all you got to do is read, and you would see that what you're saying makes absolutely no sense and is rooted in just sheer ignorance. It's so easy to read and to learn and to make those choices. But the most important thing you said, and I'll end it here because I got to hop, is that these celebrities, whoever you are, Black conservatives, right? Own it. Defend it. Be prepared to defend it and own it. How many Black Republicans have you had on your show over the last 7 to 10 years, wherever you were hosting, who have come on and fully defended their support for Donald Trump or the Republican Party. I've heard you decimate several, and many of them won't come on now. Kim Classic and others won't come on anymore, if you will, because they cannot defend it. But quite frankly, have the courage and independence to own it. Do your research. You can pick parts of history out, give the context and defend it, and own who you are. Don't lie to the public and lie to yourself and find some comfort in those lies. And so I just appreciate your leadership in laying that out. I really, really do. And I hope the students appreciate what they just observed. And Black America, who's listening and will listen in the future, what was laid out in such an incredible, accurate and excellent manner. So thank you.
God, I appreciate it. I'm going to close this out with this here. See, I told y'all it's about whiteness. When we talk about the civil rights movement, guess what? We did the interview with her. Go look at the interview. Jean Theo Harris, King of the North, Martin Luther King Jr.'s life of struggle outside the South. He wasn't just fighting Selma and Birmingham. The fight was also in the North. When we talk about what's happening with African Americans and wealth in this country, read Ira Katznelson's book, When Affirmative Action Was White, an untold history of racial inequality in 20th century America. If y'all want to understand the racial wealth gap, read that book. You'll understand how black soldiers coming out of World War II were not provided the same economic and educational benefits as white men who served in World War II. That was happening in the South and the North, and it was, again, whiteness. And guess what? Frantz Fanon, he lays it out in his book right here. Black skin, white mask, okay? He talks about, again, I'm just gonna read it for you on the back. Few modern voices have had as profound an impact on black identity and critical race studies as Frantz Fanon's, and with black skin, white mask represents some of the most important work. Fanon's masterwork is now available in a new translation that updates its language for a new generation of readers. Folks, it says a major influence on international civil rights, anti-colonial, and black consciousness movements. Black Skin, White Mask is an unsurpassed study of the black psyche in a white world. Hail for the scientific analysis and poetic grace. When it was first published in 1952, the book remains a vital force today from one of the most important thinkers on revolutionary struggle, colonialism, and racial difference in human history. Y'all, here's the reality. It's a whole bunch of us who have been so screwed up here that we are literally articulating the talking points of colonialism. Some of us are so screwed up that our limited knowledge of history causes us to repeat the same nonsensical things that they taught us in history classes. If you're in Texas, and I'm born and raised there, in the 7th grade, you have to learn Texas. It's a whole class. And when I remember that class, nowhere in that class did they tell us that, remember, the Alamo was a battle over slavery. In fact, it should be coming up, the anniversary of the Texas independence. Go back and listen to my interview with Gerald Horn. No black person in Texas should be waving no flag on Texas Independence Day, because Texas Independence Day was when the white settlers defeated the Mexican army because they wanted to keep slavery. Yo, we got our folk walking around defending a white nationalist and Donald Trump sitting 2 blocks from here. We said it earlier in the show. They are using the writings and the arguments of a segregationist to oppose the 14th Amendment. This is called history. What Nick was speaking about, Amber Rose was speaking about, Anton Daniels was speaking about, what most of the people are speaking about is his story. And the problem today is that people are more willing to share a 90-second clip on TikTok, on Instagram, And there are too many people today who want these quick, easy digestible history lessons when, hell, if you read, and I know it's hard for these folk, Gerald Horne's book on the Texas Revolution, about 600 pages. Eric Foner's book on the Reconstruction is almost 700 pages. W.B. Du Bois' book on Black Reconstruction nears 730 plus pages. Caro, anybody knows his books, Means of Ascent is almost 500. Then you come back to The Path to Power. This sucker here is almost 900. Master of the Senate, all of a sudden, you hit that book, they printed this paper so thin, it's almost 1,200 pages. The problem we have today, we got folk who don't read, who don't study, and they choose to go to YouTube University and TikTok College and Instagram A&T. That's the problem that we have today. And so, folk, last point, I also want y'all to notice something. Every time the election season comes, we get a batch of Simple Simon Negroes who begin to tell us who ain't doing something and why we shouldn't vote. I want y'all to understand what's going on. It always happens. And isn't it amazing how it's like the cockroaches when you turn the light on. They start scurrying. It always happens as we get closer to an election. You start seeing more of them come out. Vote ain't gonna matter. This ain't nothing. Democrats ain't doing nothing. They don't care about y'all. You ain't gonna get nothing. Why you wasting your time? Here's my whole point. Your constituents. You challenge Democrats and Republicans in the primary, and come general, you pick the best candidate who you think is gonna advance your issues, and we gonna call them out. We gonna put it out there as to where they stand. And what we not gonna do is allow Simple Simons. We're not gonna cede the stage to them. We're gonna use this platform to teach, to educate, to enlighten, to inform, because the stakes cannot be higher. And I'm sick and tired of people repeating false information, historically inaccurate information, and we listen to them because they're a celebrity or they're an influencer. No, I'm gonna check your facts. And if your facts are wrong, expect to get checked. Time for headlines with Brittany Noble.
To former Louisville, Kentucky police officers involved in the raid that killed Breonna Taylor. The case against former Detective Joshua James and former Sergeant Kyle Meany was dismissed with prejudice, meaning the charges cannot be refiled. The officers were accused of providing false information to obtain the search warrant for Taylor's apartment in 2020. Investigators later found that those claims were never verified and no drugs were discovered inside the home. Breonna Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, said she's disappointed with the decision to clear the officers in her daughter's case. An Orange County, Florida Circuit Court judge faces discipline after an investigation found he told public defenders to shut up and asked if a Black person had ever chopped cotton. According to court records filed with the Florida Supreme Court, Judge John E. Jordan violated the judicial conduct for his intemperate behavior and inappropriate commentary. The investigation, carried out by the Florida Judicial Qualifications Commission, an independent agency that looks into the misconduct by state judges, began in October and focuses on two incidents that occurred last year. In one, Jordan unprofessionally scolded two public defenders during an aggravated battery case in April. Having served as a circuit judge since 2011, Jordan could face a public reprimand for his actions. He's acknowledged his misconduct and expressed deep regret. Well, city crews have removed numerous decorative crosswalks throughout Dallas, including Black Lives Matter murals in southern Dallas. State officials determined that the markings do not meet safety standards, and this decision follows Texas Governor Greg Abbott's order for cities to eliminate any and all political ideologies from our streets. In Oak Lawn, crews have removed rainbow crosswalks along Cedar Springs Road, and just a few miles away, Black Lives Matter crosswalks near Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard were taken down as well. City officials say all decorative crosswalks will be repainted and brought into compliance by April 28th. Nationwide, No Kings demonstrations took place over the weekend as crews and crowds protested against President Trump's policies, the rising cost of living, and the war with Iran. Thousands of protesters marched in major cities, including Los Angeles, New York City, Atlanta, and Minneapolis, while smaller demonstrations occurred in suburban and rural areas, even in Republican-led states. Both organizers and police reported that the demonstrations were largely peaceful. Well, a Black man has filed a federal lawsuit against the Memphis Police Department alleging the mishandling of an incident that he says has left his family heartbroken. LaMichael Wilson says he requested a wellness check on his mother, LaJanice Trannon, in July of 2025. Trannon was found unresponsive and died from a pulmonary embolism. Wilson says that a few days later, he received a notification from Google Photos of a nude image of her deceased body taken at the time of the wellness check. According to him, an unnamed second lieutenant with the Memphis Police Department took that picture. And after discovering the image, Wilson says he attempted to contact MPD and other local officials to understand just why this picture was taken. And he claims he was unable to get answers and was even denied access to the body camera footage, ultimately leading him to pursue legal action. Well, Kentucky's only public HBCU will no longer be classified as an HBCU. Kentucky State University recently announced a 5-year plan to transition into a polytechnic institution. This decision followed extensive discussions about the university's future and received support from state lawmakers. The plan includes a declaration of financial exigency and aims to stabilize and strengthen the university's position. Despite this transition, the university will maintain its historic mission and commitment to students, faculty, and staff, and the Commonwealth. The university's president has indicated that he will hold a meeting with students later this week to explain the changes. And a new study links HBCU attendance to improved brain health, saying that it may offer benefits that extend beyond graduation. The research published in JAMA Network Open analyzed data from more than 1,900 Black adults who attended college between 1940 and 1980. About 35% of participants attended an HBCU, while the rest attended predominantly white institutions. The study found that those who attended HBCU showed better memory and cognitive performance at age 62 compared to their peers. While the study is considered exploratory, it does add to growing evidence that the quality and context of education matters.
All right, folks. Hey, that's it for us today. Do me a favor. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Again, your support is critical. Since we launched this show, nearly 38,000 people have become donors to our show. We would love to get to 40,000. The goal is to get 20,000 people annually to contribute $50 each. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. And so we support this show. You can also support this whole network, the 5 other shows that we have on the Black Star Network. So if you want to contribute via Cash App, use a striped QR code. You see it right here. That's also for credit cards. Checks and money order. First of all, let me also thank, I want to thank Scott. Let me thank Ome Congo. Let me thank Thelma for being on today's panel. I really appreciate y'all being on the show. Thank you so very, very much. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037 0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Again, I've been laying this stuff out since 2009. Everything that you're seeing, I published this in September 2022. All the stuff you're seeing, called it, but also laid out what we have to do to also fight it. So you want to get your copy of White Fear, get it online, get it at bookstores, and then when I'm out and about and I see y'all, I will definitely sign it, get the audio version I read on Audible. Folks, you want to get our Black Star Network, Roland Martin Unfiltered swag, please go to shop.blackstarnetwork.com. We got all our hats and t-shirts. We got our shirts. MAGA chose between woke or broke. They chose broke. Also, don't blame me. I voted for the black woman. Black-owned media matters. How you die does not redeem how you lived. That was a Reverend Howard John Wesley quote regarding Charlie Kirk. Get all of our stuff at shopblackstarnetwork.com. And if you want to support our black-owned products, all these products you see right here in our studio are all black-owned companies. These companies, I mean, you name it, they got it. I mean, man, we got spices, we got Christmas ornaments, skin care, hair care, we got dolls, we got toilet paper, we got all sorts of different stuff available at shopblackstarnetwork.com. And again, these are all black-owned companies. When you support them, you also supporting this show as well. So please go to our marketplace at shopblackstarnetwork.com. Check out all these products. And again, take advantage of it. Again, we got candles. We got eco-friendly candles. We got dog treats. You got curl prep for your hair, detangling stuff. We got watches, all sorts of the backpacks. Car wax, car cleaning solution. And so again, peruse all the products at shopblackstarnetwork.com if you want to support these black-owned businesses. Download the app Fanbase. You can follow me at Roland S. Martin. On Fanbase, don't forget, every noon Eastern, check out the breakdown with Brittany Noble on the blackstarnetwork.com, our daily noon news show, so they can get you caught up midday. And of course, we're live at 6 p.m. Then of course, we got our other shows on the network as well, so support those as well, including our new show, Second Opinion, with Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton, which streams every Thursday right here on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, that's it. Shout to the students in Clark, Atlanta behind me. Thanks for y'all coming out. You also with Fayetteville State? I've got Fayetteville State. Everybody else Clark, Atlanta? Okay, all right then. Y'all look like y'all in the hostage video. All good. So again, I want to shout them out. What are y'all in town for? It's an HBCU conference? All right, so there's an HBCU Digital Media Conference, and that's why they're in town. So they wanted to come hang out in our studios and check it out. And so we appreciate them watching how the sausage is made on today's show. All right, folks, that's it. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow. Holla!